Welcome back to the program. Well, we'll see tomorrow exactly what the government is going to do on housing affordability. But Labor is going to say, no matter what happens, you should still be looking at negative gearing, capital gains tax as well. They're highlighting it in a little bit of a different way at the moment. Sam Dastyari has been out on the road. He's been doing a few different social media videos. This one was highlighting what you get, or more importantly, maybe don't get for $1 million these days in outer suburban Sydney. Have a bit of a look at part of what he put online.
This is what $1 million in Sydney will buy you. This, what's called a classic house in the suburb of Ryde, immaculately kept, as it's been told, on one of the busiest roads of Sydney to boot. And you know if it's got security shutters, you're onto a good thing.
He does it in a way that might get attention more than most. I'm going to bring in our political panel on this. Peter Connell and Tim Wilson, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Tom.
Peter Connell, he's caused a bit of a backlash here because the owner of the house was able to identify it. Sam Dastyari was, let's be honest, making fun of the location, having security shutters. You've got to be careful here, don't you, about highlighting the issue here, but at the same time making fun of someone.
Well, that's the first time I've seen that, actually. I didn't have a chance to see it, Tom. But, look, I think it's a bit harmless, and I'm sure he didn't mean offence to the owner of the property. And it's funny how the Libs have all got up in arms about it. It's a bit of a diversion from the fact that they're not addressing housing affordability. And Labor's policy is a very strong one, and it is about ensuring that negative gearing is reformed, the CGT is reformed, so that people can actually compete. Not compete against people going for their sixth or seventh investment property, and that's something the Libs has still been unable to do. We've heard all this talk about what they're going to do in the budget. We'll see what happens on Tuesday night, but they're still stubbornly refusing to actually accept the fact that they need to reform negative gearing.
Tim Wilson?
Well, firstly, I actually have seen the whole clip, so you should actually go and watch it, Peter, because what it is a cascading series of examples of Sam Dastyari sneering at the people, average Australians, and it's actually really quite disappointing. I mean, some people can't live in the inner city in your electorate or somewhere near your electorate. Some people actually have to save longer. Some people have to sacrifice to be able to get their foothold in the property market and build their Australian dream. And the last thing you want is a senator of whatever political stripe coming along and sneering at your choices and the fact that you're actually investing in your own future. And I think I think when you watch the video, it's actually extremely disappointing. And look, to be fair, you've acknowledged it's the first time you've seen it and that you have a problem with it, and I accept that.
I never said that. Well, I have a problem with your confected outrage. I mean, seriously, you're very good at confected outrage. Seriously, the real issue here is the real issue here is that people are unable, young people are unable to get into the market. You don't have a policy to address that.
Let's deal with the substantial policy, but you don't start with the substantial policy.
Let me throw with a policy question to you, Peter Connell, the one that is doing the rounds today, that maybe the government will give tax concessions to a separate salary sacrifice account. So you're a first home buyer, you can salary sacrifice money, so basically you get tax advantages in an account just for your first home. Not taking out of your super, but a separate account. It's been out there before in a different form. Does this sound
under
like
a Labor government? I mean, this is really interesting because it looks very familiar. It's something that was scrapped by a Liberal government a couple of years ago. So, look, we'll look at anything that's put forward to actually help relieve the pressure on young families, young couples who are trying to get, and young people trying to get into the housing market. But what's really quite outrageous is that you're jumping up and down about this pretty harmless video, which is making the point about how crazy the prices have become, how much heat there is in the market, there is no attempt to even address the fact that a reform on negative gearing is absolutely necessary to make housing more affordable.
This is the confected outrage, unfortunately.
That's my line.
Of the current. Well, I know, but it's a good one because it represents
something you do very well.
It represents the absurdity of the position that you're taking. Firstly, we have senators out there sneering at Australians actually who are trying to invest in their own future. And I actually think that is reprehensible. Right, but let's move on to the policy, which is Labor has run around everywhere saying that negative gearing is a problem, negative gearing is a problem. It's a completely fallacious argument. There's no evidence to stack it up. There's no evidence that prices would change because negative gearing is simply saying we won't tax you on your losses.
You're saying no evidence prices change. Wasn't your whole campaign that it would send prices crashing initially, these changes?
Well, I'm sorry, I've never accepted that negative gearing will have a significant effect in changing house prices.
So when that was a warning from Scott Morrison to Malcolm Turnbull that was rubbish.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I have never...
You are. There's no evidence it'll have any impact.
I say I don't believe it'll have a substantial impact in changing house prices. I don't believe that. Now, there are differing opinions because there is no one property market, Tom. And this is one of the great misunderstandings that they like to represent, which I don't think is accurate. There are different property markets and different subsections. But the idea that you're going to somehow fiddle with negative gearing and start taxing people on losses, that's what negative gearing won't change.
Just actually about this change, this separate account, because the issue you see with this is, again, it's another federal program that applies to the whole market, and essentially you're giving another incentive or advantage to the first home buyer, but the investor still has a tax concession, so you're just sort of upping the bidding more.
It's not a tax concession, you're just not taxing people on losses. That's what that's what actually happens with negative gearing.
It's not a concession because you can take it away from your income tax.
Yeah, that's right, because we don't tax people on their losses. That's the point about negative gearing. Now, yes, we'll be encouraging people to invest in their future. Exactly the sorts of people that Sam Dastyari and Peter Khalil have been sneering about in these types of videos.
Wow.
Well, unless you're prepared to...
you make up some stuff.
Well,
can I just respond now?
You're not rejecting the sneering.
You've had a long
You're not
run-up.
rejecting the sneering.
You've had a long run-up. You've had a long run-up. Just let's deal with some facts here, all right? When you've got 20% foreign buyers in the market, which is what's happening in the residential market, and you've got investors who are going for their 6th, 7th property, competing with people who are first home buyers trying to get their first property. Negative gearing is an issue. Now, we've got some pretty strong reforms to ensure that, you know, if you've negative geared on a property after a certain date, it's grandfather. So if you're going to continue to be able to do that, but you can still negative gear on new properties going forward. That helps stimulate the market with supply. It actually helps relieve the pressure for first home buyers.
What it does is actually
that's a good policy.
What it actually does is fragments the market and says to young people, you can live in these clearly definable suburbs, but established suburbs you can't go and live in unless you're...
They can't go and live in the established suburbs now.
Unless you can
because they're competing with investors.
Very wealthy parents. And that's the fundamental problem.
They're actually confining negative gearing to new properties. Wouldn't that make new properties more expensive and established cheaper in terms of that competition?
No, if you remove negative gearing on new properties, what you will see is shifts in the housing market. What you'll see is new suburbs.
You're just saying there'd be no impact with the reforms. Now you're telling me there is an impact.
No, I'm saying that you will lock...
I think you're at 6s and 9s on this. The fact is, Scott Morrison went to Cabinet with this about 24 months ago and got knocked back. It was a good policy then.
Suburbs where you would see that policy have an effect is exactly the ones that Sam Dastyari was going out in those videos and attacking people.
I want to move on to what's happening with security agencies. More money for the AFP, ASIO, ACIS, $500 million or so. It's coming out of foreign aid. Why?
Well, because we always had a partnership between programs of investing in securing Australia's borders and also helping the AFP to protect other countries and deal with their national security issues as part of the aid program.
To our domestic agencies, that's something to do with foreign aid, isn't it?
We also transfer those skills to other countries like Indonesia when we work with Indonesian government to deal with issues around, specifically around protecting people from issues of terrorism within their own country, transferring technology and skills, and we're going to continue to do that.
Peter Khalil, any thoughts on this?
Tom, look, always welcome to get more resources for the AFP, the important work they do in intelligence, in security and counter-terrorism. This is really, really important. What we're concerned about, and we want assurances that this money is not going to be drawn from elsewhere within the sort of broader national security and foreign affairs budgets, and it looks like it may be. Look, Tim, you've got to understand too that, and I think you understand this, that foreign aid, the foreign aid budget is an important element of our overall international relations. It is important to ensure regional security and stability, and that flows into basically dealing with issues like terrorism and governance through our aid budget. So it's really concerning that the other concern, sorry, Tom, is, you know, we want Malcolm Turnbull to come and step in and make sure that they're not going to cut the pay packets of AFP officers as well.
All right, well, he's going to make that announcement any minute. I want to get you quickly, Tim Wilson, on AFP investigations into leaks to journalists. Now, since June 13, there have been 44. 2 have had convictions. Is this a good use of AFP time?
Well, when you're dealing with national security issues or issues of threats against the Commonwealth, then yes, it actually is appropriate. We don't know which one
of these were. Would that be a better way to know that you should pursue the leaks if they're to do with national security? If we're talking about a budget leak and someone finding out about childcare, then don't pursue it?
Well, budget leaks are actually quite important. I mean, you go into lockdown tomorrow, as do many other journalists, because there's a huge effect on the market for those people who have access to privileged information earlier. So national security leaks are important. Making sure that we deal with budget leaks are actually quite important as well, because they have a substantial impact on the future direction of the country, and people actually sign waivers. But do we want people going out and following up on individual political leaks? No, but there's a substantial difference between the two.
Where's the difference made, though? I might ask you, Peter Khalil, because the legislation that Labor helped pass as well doesn't differentiate, does it? As far as I'm aware, you know, well, this is a political leak, this is a security one.
The balance is always about making sure you get that balance right between collective security and individual rights. And this is a perfect example where, you know, we're trying to make a distinction, I guess, between what might be important national security issues that might have an impact on individuals' rights versus more economic matters, I suppose.
But it's all illegal, public interest, so you can still pursue it.
Sure, and the test is always about the public interest and what the public interest is.
And I guess we don't have the transparency, do we? Because it happens, the judiciary decides on it. And do we have faith in the institutions? And you're happy with where it is as the old Freedom Commissioner, I guess?
Well, we have security apparatus that sits around it to make sure that the AFP isn't actually abusing their powers. And so am I happy with the broad infrastructure? I think broadly, yes. Do I like government going investigating, or agencies going investigating journalists? Necessarily no, but I don't like them doing it to the average Australian either. I mean, journalists always think they're a privileged class of people. I don't believe that. I believe one law should apply to everybody.
All right, we'll finish at that whack on me and my colleagues, Tim Wilson, Peter Khalil.
Thanks,
lively
Tom.
as ever.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Stay with us. More coming up on AIM Agenda.